Plaintiff Terry Turner says the defendant was a friend of his daughter's, and they dated for a short time. Terry claims even though it never went anywhere, he still has feelings for the defendant, and he's suing her for unpaid rent and utilities. Defendant Sarah Sox says after she and Terry went to Hawaii together, she discovered he'd been seeing other women, so she broke up with him. Sarah denies owing Terry for anything.
All rise. This court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Greg Mathis presiding. You may now be seated.
Start with you.
Well, I met Miss Sox back in about 10 years ago. She was a friend of my daughter's, but she was a few years older than my daughter. But anyway, we dated.
How old was your daughter?
At the time, 23. I'm about 30 years older than her.
All right.
Sugar daddy.
We don't know what
Don't like that term very much.
You don't use that term very much?
Sugar daddy, no.
Mm-hmm. Well, I got news for you. A lot of other people do.
I know.
For you.
I know.
All right, go ahead. You tell me. It depends. What you suing for money? Sugar daddies don't sue. You got that wrong.
Got it.
He got her. He copped her on game. Good game. On his looks and his conversation. So you give me some more background on
Okay, well, anyway, I came back for vacation. That's when I met her and stuff, to visit my daughter and stuff. My daughter had decided to move out to California, and me and Miss Sox had taken a trip to Hawaii and back, and we had a really good time and hit it off really good. And anyway, she drove my daughter out to California and stayed about a month when she was out there, and then she came back because she had kids back in Indiana and stuff, so I really never expected her to stay, any really length of time or anything.
With you or with your daughter?
With me.
Why?
Well, because I'm 30 years older than her, and I'm a realist. I know that a guy her age is going to come along one day and she's going to,
swoop her up?
Probably. I mean, I'm just saying,
you're preparing your heart. That's right.
That's exactly right.
That's smart. Mm-hmm.
Well, anyway, she'd come out a couple of times while I was out in California and spent, a couple of weeks here and a month here and a couple of weeks there, just, And then this last year, my other daughter had a baby girl, and so I came home to kind of help my daughter with their baby girl and to see my new granddaughter and stuff, and so when I was back here then, she got a hold of me, and I went over and visited her and stuff, and I just didn't like her living conditions that she was living in at the time, and because I care for this girl. I love her, it's not like a real heavy...
She had you for 10 years, right?
Well, not really.
How long did she have you?
We didn't date for 10 years.
How long did she have you?
Oh, just a couple months. Whenever we saw each other, that's about it.
Okay.
Our relationship just was about, whenever we saw each other, we saw each other.
Well, she didn't really have you.
Not really.
You were really a stray.
I don't know.
I'm telling you. That's straight. You're straight.
Yeah, but anyway, she was going to come out.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought so. Go ahead. See, she said you were straight.
So
you know what a stray is?
Yeah, I guess free to do whatever I want to do, I guess.
Kind of, yeah.
Well, I think, I've been thinking about her for the 10 years. I always think about her all the time.
Let's finish this. She had no real commitment to you. As you said, she'd pick you up, call on you anytime you want, get her a nice little booty call out of you, and go back home. With a couple dollars in her pocket.
Say that we did any booty calls like that, went back home, anything like that.
She never came over late. She never came over late at night and just left afterwards.
No.
Yes, she did. You wasn't nothing but a random booty call. I don't know what you thought you were.
No, it wasn't that way at all.
You thought she loved you, didn't you?
She does love me.
Every
I do love
every
him.
few
I do
months.
love him, Your Honor, but
She love you every few months.
I was living in Indiana and he was living in California. So when I would go out there, it would be for, a couple weeks, at the most a month. And then I would come back. And I did that for a little while. But he was dating other females in the process that I didn't necessarily know about when we went to Hawaii. So that was kind of the ending point of us seeing each other on that level, but we've always remained friends, over the years since then.
Okay.
I think is what he's trying to say.
Good. Yeah, I got it. I'm having fun with him because that's what men do that to women. Men always say that about women when they're together in their little circles and when they want to stick their chests out and talk stuff. That's the type of stuff they talk. So I want to make sure you all, when you go back to your girlfriends, I want y'all to talk like that, all right? So yeah, I had this stray, kept him for about 10 years, beat him out about 10,000, trip to Hawaii, bills, they didn't want to come back for some bread on his utility bills. He sound like a fool. That's why I want you to talk to your girlfriends, all right? All right. About men. Rent and utilities, how does she owe you for that?
Well, we had a, like I said, I didn't really like the living place that she was living in. And I was looking for a place, and I asked her if she would be interested in getting a place with me instead of laying over there at that place. Okay, there's a lot of people running in and out of there, and just wasn't a savory place for me. I wouldn't live there. But anyway, so the house next door from my sister. Well, I picked her up. She hung out with me for a couple weeks. We went over to my sister's and stayed at my sister's house for a couple weeks, and the house next door came up for rent. And so I talked to them about renting, and I talked to her. Me and her had already agreed that we were going to get a place together and split the rent. And so I got the place.
Hear that a man 30 years older than you asked you to split some rent?
Yeah, well, it was a 2-bedroom house, so I did have my own room. Okay. And at this point, we weren't dating or
all right
on that type of level, so it was only fair.
What do you mean on that level? What level was it?
We're just friends nowadays. We'll never go back down that road.
Okay, I was just curious as to splitting the rent with your woman, but I got it now. You all moved in and you weren't seeing each other anymore for the most part.
Right.
And you all agreed to split the utilities in half?
Well, I wasn't gonna give her half. I told her she could only pay $300 a month. Half would have been $400 a month.
Okay.
But she wasn't on the lease or anything, so, I just, and to split utilities with
How did she end up owing the $500?
Well, she never paid any of it, so.
0 utilities she paid?
And 0 rent.
Okay,
So
all right, ma'am.
Well,
you talking about all this splitting the rent because you had a room separately and you ain't paid a dime.
Well,
split a thing.
Technically, sir, while he was living in California, a few years ago, his daughter that just had the baby was working as a home health care aide for him.
Okay.
His insurance was paying, somebody to take care of him, basically, because he's not in the greatest of health. Mm-hmm. So when I had chose to rent this place with him, I was moving from one city to another city. So I didn't have a job at the time, and he knew this, but he was supposed to get his healthcare provider to give those home healthcare hours here in Indiana, like he got in California. And then I would be getting paid to take care of him. But instead that never came through. But I still took care of him as if I was getting paid to take care of him, I guess I should say.
But did you agree to pay ever?
Yes, but that was contingent upon, him getting the home health care hours. And he was supposed to give me a little bit of time because I moved from one city to another city. So I moved to a whole different place.
Is he asking for his money before the time that he gave you? Has he given you sufficient time?
Well,
And I know it was contingent upon your hours.
That's kind of why I moved out, because he never followed through with getting these home health care hours for me. And here I am taking care of him, and that's almost like a full-time job.
Sir, she says the agreement to pay was contingent upon her getting a certain number of home health care hours, and she couldn't get them, and therefore she shouldn't have to.
Well, why? Those health care hours just came from Indiana insurance. I was getting help out in California, but in Indiana they didn't want to seem to give me any
I
help.
got it, but the question is, what was the agreement?
The agreement was
it when you get your health care hours? That's when you
yes,
pay?
but there was nothing written in stone.
All right, doesn't have to be in writing. Your answer was yes.
I would love to get those hours and to
No. Was it part of the agreement?
No, it
Well,
was
you
not
just
a
said
part.
yes a minute ago.
Well, I can't be the one who issues those hours out to her. That's up to the hospital and those doctors.
But you can be the one.
But I've been trying.
What
to get
agreement
them
that you referred to wasn't in stone? You just said the agreement wasn't in stone and it wasn't in writing. What agreement are you talking about?
Just our verbal agreement.
Your verbal agreement to what?
She was going to get a job no matter what, whether the health care.
Now, what was your verbal agreement specifically?
That she was going to pay me $300 a month while we lived together and split the utilities with me. That was the only real
home health care
agreement.
never came up.
I would like for that to have happened, and she would have too. But
as part of the agreement, you said it was verbal. When you all were making this verbal agreement, did you ever say you can pay me if you get a home health care job or when you get the right number of hours? Was that ever discussed?
No.
Ma'am?
That we discussed getting the home health care hours. Like he said, it's not in my control or his control.
Ma'am, was that discussed when he made the agreement with you?
He didn't say it was, that's the only, way I had to pay. I mean, it was, I needed to have a job, but the home health care was supposed to be my job because as I'm moving to a new city,
I need to know, ma'am, I'm trying to get the agreement and I'm not getting it. I had to pull it out of him. Now I'm about to have to pull it out of you. He says there was an agreement. So my question is, when you all made this verbal agreement to do $300 a month, was there any discussion as to how you were to pay? The first discussion.
Yeah, I was supposed to be getting the home health care hours. And then if that didn't happen, like if they denied him in the state of Indiana for any hours, then I would go out and get a job. But he never got approved or denied. We're actually still in the process of trying to getting him those hours.
He wasn't denied?
He wasn't. He's not been approved or denied hours.
They never sent me any mail back. I kept in touch with them trying to get
The only issue was this part of the agreement, ma'am. He says it wasn't even discussed. You say it was discussed even with options. If you get the hours, if not, when you get a job, all of this. He says none of that was discussed. You say 2 options. That's what you're telling me?
Yes.
All right. Sir, do you have any evidence that you all discussed it being contingent?
I don't have any evidence.
Because you say it wasn't contingent. Do you have any evidence that it was contingent upon you getting a home health care? No evidence, no communications. I have to take the word of either one of you, which has been very sketchy, your testimony. I don't know who to believe. And when a judge has to rely on testimony and no direct evidence, no communications, no pictures, no anything, if he has to rely on verbal evidence, then it's based on who is most likely to be telling the truth. Who the judge believes is most likely to be telling the truth. The burden is on you to convince me, and you have it. So I must dismiss your claim. Have a good day.